as we initiate chaos. Theory guarantees that we'll play like lightning shots, sounding like thunder. For every time in the face that it hits us, we're faster. Well, they should know by now. They see the world keeps trying to shake us. It only waits us. The pendulum swings. The pendulum swings. It's in a beautiful darkness. Only another. It's full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. All about the Petty Express. Misdirected from the start. It's a runaway train. I come a freight train. I come a freight train. In a beautiful darkness, the Petty Express. In a beautiful darkness.
Hey, you guys, it is the Petty Express. We are finally to closings. Hopefully, we'll get through the Brandon Boudreaux case quickly. I do have it tentatively set on my schedule for Friday that if they are going to stream the sentencing, I will be doing that. I know we haven't gotten through the Boudreaux case, but I think that the sentencing will be fun, and Lord knows this chick is gonna talk. So let's get into this. I do have it at 1.25 and the closed captions on closing statements, closing arguments. Typically, the state will go first, then the defense, which is Lori Daybell, and then the state will rebut again. I do believe that that is the same for this, although it's been a while since we've been in an Arizona jurisdiction. So let's get into it. And then we know the verdicts, so we will go into sentencing watch. But we will start Brandon Boudreaux possibly tomorrow, depending on how the Koberger sentencing goes, because that is on the schedule for tomorrow. But let's get into this case for now, because I'm sure she's going to have just a whole hot mess express over Chernobyl on top of a Sharknado with her dumbness in this.
July 18th of 2019, just 7 days after this defendant and her co-conspirator Alex Cox shot and killed Charles. This defendant texted her soon-to-be next husband, Chad Daybell, about Charles's life insurance policy. Her words tell us that she was involved in this killing. Her actions and her words of texting Chad Daybell tell us the motives behind this murder: Chad and money. The morning of that 18th of July, Lori Vallow texted Chad and said, quote, "I just got the letter from the insurance company saying that I am not the beneficiary. It's a spear through my heart. Who do you think he changed it?"
I still wish it had been a literal spear. It's these figurative spears that don't seem to leave any evidence that I'm a little irritated Lori got, stuck with. That being said, she is such a dimwit.
Too. Later that day, after she spoke with the life insurance company, she sent Chad another text. Quote, "So I talked to the insurance company. He changed it in March. Probably it was Ned before we got rid of him." Lori Vallow's words 7 days after Charles was shot and killed tells us that we was her and Alex killing Charles. Why? For that money. But Lori Vallow's plan to kill Charles wasn't just known by her lover, Chad Daybell, and her accomplice and co-conspirator, Alex Cox. It was also known by her brother, Adam. Adam told us that he knew about Lori's beliefs. He knew what she had been saying about Charles's concerns for himself. And he told us that he knew about this plan for an intervention to talk to a stakeholder. That morning of July 11th, when Charles arrived at Lori's house, as she knew he would, he texted Adam and said, "Al is here." Adam texted back, "They are planning something." He knew. And 3 days later on Saturday, when Adam finally learned, when his friend Googled Charles, that he had been shot and killed.
I mean, I get where she's going with this, but I think that you implying that Adam knew that they were going to murder Charles makes him an accessory or possibly an accomplice. So he knew that something hinky was going on, but the way she's using it in context, it sounds like Adam knew and let his friend Charles walk into a crime scene.
By Alex. Adam told us he went back and talked to his mother and he confronted her about this. And he told his mother, Lori and Alex conspired to kill Charles. He knew, and he was right. Lori's ex-friend, Christina Atwood. She told you about that very uncomfortable dinner on June 9th, a month before the murder, where Alex Cox was talking about just wanting to kill Charles. He said this multiple times, and this defendant didn't care. In fact, she talked about how she had been drugging Charles. Christina told you she was so disturbed by this, she actually went and saw Lori the next day, June 10th, and told her, if something happens to Charles, I'm going to have to go to the police. Christina knew. She was right. And Nancy Jo Hancock. Now, she had just met Charles a few days before, and they had talked and texted and had been on the phone for hours, you heard. Charles had told her all about Lori, the things she was saying, the things she was doing. She told you that she knew that Charles was concerned for his own safety. And she understood the motive. She told Charles the night before, you probably should just tell Lori that you've changed the beneficiary, that she's no longer going to get that money. Nancy Jo knew, and she was right. Lori Vallow wanted.
That is the big tragedy to me, is that I do wonder if he had just come out and been, direct with her and told her, Lori, I've changed beneficiaries. We're getting divorced. It's just not going to happen. If that would have either accelerated the criminality, made Lori act impulsively even quicker, or if that would have nipped a lot of things in the bud. I don't know. And it's one of those what ifs you can play out to 1,000 paces, but it's not what happened, unfortunately.
$1 million, and she wanted Chad Daybell. And she and Alex used that twisted religious beliefs they had so that they could kill the evil, possessed Charles and be like Nephi.
Okay, but which one, heifers? Because I just learned from yesterday's Lori's pedantic, rant into the Quattro Nephis. Which the hell Nephi are we talking about? Apparently there's 4 books with 4 different people being called Nephi, so I would like to be RSVP'd no to more Nephi talk.
The evidence that has been presented in this trial will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. So I want to split up my closing into 3 sections. First, I'm going to talk to you about the timeline and the motives in this case and the evidence that supports those. Second, I want to talk to you about the jury instructions and the evidence that's been presented to you in court. I'll remind you that anything the defendant said in her opening was not presented at trial through a witness or through an exhibit, and it is not evidence. Using the evidence that has been presented and admitted at trial, the state will show you how, again, the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of this crime. And finally, I'm going to talk to you about those justification defenses, the excuses and the reasons why the defendant would like you to believe that they had a valid basis for shooting and killing Charles on July 11th. And we'll talk about how, in fact, there is no justification for what happened. What happened that morning was a first-degree premeditated execution of Charles Vallow. So let's go through the evidence. The timeline really starts, and we know it goes back much further than this, but the big change occurs on June 29th or 30th, when you learned that Charles Vallow learned about these KK Walker emails. He learned about that affair with Chad. Now he knows.
I still, and for the gajillionth time, will never understand. Charles Vallow, attractive, handsome man. Chad Dorkbell, the love child of, well, Mr. Magoo and frickin' Peter Griffin. I will just never understand it. I mean, ever.
Lori is cheating on him. We know that he contacted Chad Daybell about it. He contacted Chad's wife about this. He told Adam about it, and he told the defendant about it. So everyone knew that Charles now knew this. July 9th is now the first time that Charles is going to be coming back to Arizona. We know from the time he learned about that affair, he hadn't been back until this planned visit to see his son, JJ. We know at 1:13 p.m., Charles texts Adam and books him a flight for the next day. At 1:21, we know that Adam is contacting Alex. And they talk for 20 minutes. And Alex lets Adam know, sure, you can stay with me. Of course, Alex doesn't know the plan yet, the mission. Lori then starts talking to Chad Daybell. We know that she knows about this intervention. She knows about Adam coming, and we know this because, again, of her text messages. We see Lori then starting to round up the troops. Why does she do this? Because she wants to ensure that on July 11th, it is Charles and only Charles coming to the house and not the intervention of Adam or Brandon or Zach coming over to help him. So she has Melanie. Tells her she can't go to this wedding. She has to stay here. It's coming to a head. This week will change everything. Call me. Then we have July 9th, the text messages with Alex. She tells him, so the plot thickens, call me when you can. He doesn't call her initially. So she sends him another message. This one really letting him know. She specifically tells him, I'm going to need you to stay close to me the next couple days. Mel too, she can't go to Utah. She's got a job. They are planning some kind of intervention, but want Mel out of the way, so I'm left alone. She talks, I need to come get the stuff at your house tomorrow and secure it. Lots to do. Thank you for standing by me. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. And then what happens? This gets Alex to call, and they talk for almost an hour. An hour planning how they're going to stop the intervention, how they're going to.
How dare you, ma'am? They were figuring out which Nephite they were going to be. They're like, look, I'm Nephi 1, and you're Nephi 2, and you're Nephi 3. We're the traveling Nephis. Oh, good Lord.
To be like Nephi. As we get to the 10th of July, and we continue through this timeline, we see Lori again talking religiously with Chad.
Lurking Feds, I do have her at 1.25 simply because her normal speed is too slow for me. I mean, but this is her normal.
149 minutes that morning. She's also texting Lori, or texting Melanie Boudreau, Melanie B, telling her that it's important for the mission, for Melanie to help her by keeping Brandon distracted. And we saw those messages where Melanie says she'll pretend to be sick. We know that on the 10th, Adam arrives in Phoenix. And now we have Summer helping the defendant, letting her know what is going on with Adam and Zach. Everyone is covered to ensure that Charles will be alone on the 11th. We have the continuing talks with Chad, her soon-to-be husband. As we get into the 10th in the afternoon, we know that per their agreement, Adam calls his brother Alex. Hey, I'm here. Brother doesn't answer. He sends him a text. I'm here. No response. Why? Because the night before, his sister Lori told him, we have a mission. We must be like Nephi. Charles is coming into town. You must stay at my house the night of the 10th so you can be here the morning of the 11th. We also know that Summer gave Lori an out. Hey, you can stay at my house. No one will know where you are. We're going to be out of town. You can hang out here. Lori doesn't take her up on that. She has a mission to do. As the night grows on the 10th, Adam continues to try to reach his brother Alex. Again, no response. And by 45 or so minutes after that last text by Adam, we know Alex is already at Lori's house. He's there with his gun and a garbage bag of some underwear. Why? That gun is important. A loaded weapon, 2 extra magazines of ammunition with him. He is ready for his mission. And again,
Okay, but why the underpants? I feel like you brought it up and now I have questions. So don't bring it up if you're not going to explain to me why he brought, his Fruit of the Looms in, a hefty bag. Because now I have more questions, damn it.
Summer is updating her, telling Lori that Zach and Adam are still at her house. They're going to go stay at Mimi's. And she even tells him that Adam is still waiting for Alex to get back to him. Still, he doesn't understand. Why isn't my brother responding to me? I was supposed to stay there. And again, what does Adam bring over? Gun and a garbage bag of clothes. That's all he needs to be part of the mission. When we get to July 11th, we still have Lori talking with Chad. We see those text messages going back between them. And then we start learning from the GPS from Charles Vallow's phone as he arrives. 7:35 a.m., he arrives at 5531 South Four Peaks. That's where we have at 7:36, Adam texting Charles. They are planning something. There is no reason why Alex should be there. And that explains why Alex wasn't responding to me and didn't let me stay there. We see that last outgoing text message by Charles Vallow at 7:37. And in fact, what we see is at 7:37 and 12 seconds, Charles sends out his last outgoing message. And at 7:37 and 29 seconds, there's an incoming message from Adam. It's not read until 12:13 p.m. What becomes important here is, in this timeline, how long is Charles at the residence here? You hear in her interview how she says it's so fast. Charles comes inside. He's angry. He's jerky. And she tells him, take JJ. Go get him Burger King. They get JJ out to the car. And then she holds onto the phone. And this argument erupts, and it's just so fast. But what we know is it's actually 12 minutes long. This is not a fast incident. In this 12 minutes, Lori Vallow and her brother Alex Cox are doing their mission, and they are being like Nephi. We know at 7:49, it's over.
Y'all, we are lucky that it is only 9 a.m. because if we did a drinking game for shots for Nephi, which I'm sure is sacrilegious on, well, multiple religious fronts, but I would be hammered. That being said, evening stream once, maybe.
Over. Lori has left in Charles Vallow's car with his phone and JJ and Tylee. We know that there are 2 phone calls between Alex and this defendant after she leaves, as Charles is laying dying or dead on the floor. 7:52, 8:06.
Wait, now there's a drink? How many Nephis are there? Will the real Nephi please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up. I'm going to have a break. I'm going to have a breakdown. Wait, now is this a real drink or are you pranking me? I give gonna need therapy for Nephi phobia.
They talk. 47 minutes passes before Alex calls 911. 47 minutes to stage the scene. The police are advised when they arrive that the shooting just occurred and that CPR was given. Why is that important? Because you heard even during the interviews, the police were trying to figure out.
Thank you,
This timeline didn't make sense. At 8:48, almost an hour later, Lori Vallow returns. And then we see that around 9:40, she is being interviewed at the Family Advocacy Center. We know that Lori Vallow has Charles's phone that entire afternoon. You saw the PowerPoint from Detective Werther showing that her phone by about 12:36 is already her phone, Alex's phone, and Charles's phone are all in the area of Alex's house out in Sandham. You see
Detective
on the records
Zoot
that
I
she
loved
again
him.
calls Chad Daybell. We see that Detective Enclan calls her and leaves her a message. They don't leave immediately because what do we know? We know at 2:13, Alex is taking photos of flight reservations from Charles's phone. Not screenshots, but photos of the phone. At 2:18, Lori Vallow, who has not told Charles's kids, his family, about his murder, is calling the mortuary.
A little
Bit after
sus.
that, they still haven't left. She's calling Chad again. And then by 3:11, we know that Charles's phone, through the GPS data, is back at 5531 South Four Peaks. And when asked about it, the defendant entirely handed over and provide the PIN. They have no problem on how to get into it. They've already looked through it. They don't need it anymore. That evening, Lori and Chad are talking all night. You can look through the exhibits and see the multiple calls of them discussing. These aren't calls to Charles's family. They're not calls to his kids. They're talking with her lover, her soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell. So let's talk about the motives of this case. Money. We see that from the text messages and the anger that you see through them when she learns that that's been changed and she's not going to get it. Chad Daybell. We didn't go through those text messages, but you can look at them. They are already very romantically involved by the time that Charles is murdered.
This woman is the devil. She is trying to get these jurors to read that loinfire bullcrap I had to read. And I can say that you need therapy after it. So this woman is trying to, it's like when someone tells you don't look up blue waffle, and you know you shouldn't, and you know you shouldn't, or two girls, one cup, and you know you shouldn't. You know that your computer is going to need to be fumigated and, has gonorrhea syphilis, but you just want to look, so you get an incognito, and then your face is stuck in like, oh, why did I do this? I knew I shouldn't have done this. This was a terrible idea. But you still do. So they're going to read the Mormon prawn.
And it's clear that Chad knows exactly what's going on because he's asking her about the car, about the insurance. All of those things Chad knows. And then there's that religious belief system. The zombies, the Z's, the possessed evil spirits. And her being like Nephi. All a reason and a way to kill someone, just like Nephi, a justified killing. There's that first call when we talk about money motive to Banner Life Insurance.
And what was the cause of his passing? Well, he was shot. Okay.
So I don't know how I want to put that.
Okay. All right. And I hate to ask,
Yeah.
but is it?
Yeah,
you can just say yes or no. Was it a homicide?
No, it was an accident.
An accident.
So what we hear here
An
is
accident.
Lori Vallow being untruthful to Banner Life Insurance. We'll talk about credibility later, but it becomes very relevant that even in the smallest of things, this defendant exaggerates, minimizes, and is completely untruthful to various people. We all know that she was not the beneficiary. She didn't. But we also know that Charles Vallow was not accidentally shot. She told the police she was there. She knows that her brother intentionally shot him. Of course, they want to claim it's self-defense. There's no accident about that when you shoot someone twice.
How do you feel about 3 times? Asking for a friend.
Motives for money. What we see again here is Lori Vallow talking to Chad about the motive. Telling Chad about the fact that it was changed. I just got the letter from that insurance company saying I am not the beneficiary. It is a spear through my heart. Who do you think he changed it to? Brandon? Or probably Kay? He left nothing for JJ. What do we know? Again, we see that Chad knows about all of these things. And what does he talk about in that morning as you have those entire messages? And it's at 2:30. It would be interesting if he got changed after he had 2 bullets to the chest. Again,
I love that Chad was probably like, "Mwah, I know what happened, those terrible evil zombies. Mwah, they must have changed it after he passed." Which defies logic because let's play this out, Chad, dumbass. Uh, Lori didn't, let them know about Chad's death or Charles's death. I wish it was Chad, but Lori didn't let Chad's or Charles's family know about his death. So how could they have, maliciously changed the beneficiary, not knowing he was dead in order to screw Lori? See how that doesn't make logic sense, Chad? There you go, sweetie. That's how we logic things. It doesn't work like that.
As we talk about the murder, we have later in that day the message that I talked to you about. So it was probably Ned before we got rid of him. We, not I, not my brother Alex, but we did.
The royal
And then
we.
the other thing in this text message that is of importance is the fact that Lori Vallow knew a month before she went to Social Security how much money she was already going to get for the death of Charles. Here she says, I will still get.
Wait a minute. They do a Kelly Blue Book of this? I mean, I guess she has done some research.
The $4,000 a month from Social Security. When we talk about that motive and the anger by this defendant over not being the beneficiary, we know that even on July 28th, so 10 days later, she goes into Charles's computer to find the change of beneficiary form. She texts that to Chad to show him, and she sends it to Kay and confronts her about it. Money. That's what she wanted. And Chad. So let's talk about Chad, the affair with Chad Daybell. We know that she knew him as far back as November of 2018, when he came to Arizona and stayed at Lori's house. You were told by Detective Duncan that there were recordings on her Lori for Style iCloud account of Chad Daybell here in Arizona for that Preparing the People conference. You also heard
She was a Chad Dorkbell fangirl? This just gets sadder and sadder.
that in the Lollipop, the later account that was created later, that in March of 2019, there were screenshots of flights to Idaho and back to Arizona with both Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. This is during that time when she disappeared and Charles was taking care of JJ, and she's off flying to Hawaii and Idaho, living the good life with her soon-to-be husband. And then, of course, we know that come November 5th, she actually marries.
Well, you know what they say, when God closes one marriage, he opens up a side piece. No, wait, that's not it. When you end one marriage, get under another. No, I'm sure there's an applicable cattle reference, like to get over one cowboy, ride another, but it'll come to me.
Chad Daybell. That KK Walker email address. This was that June 29th. Big change. What do we know? That on April 21st, she created that account. She used her own phone number in creating it. And then she sent messages to Chad Daybell, brother Daybell. You have that exhibit. She pretends to be Karen Walker and invites him to Houston, because that's where she is at that time. She offers to use Charles's money to fly him out there, and that he can stay at the house with her and her husband. In June of 2019, we see that Lori again uses that same account, but this time she pretends to be Charles and invites Chad out to Arizona to help him with a book. And again, in Exhibit 289, you have those letters. Charles finds those.
Yeah.
And he lets everyone know he did. And he confronts Tammy, lets her know. Confronts Chad, lets him know. And he certainly lets the defendant know that he knows. And now the jig is up. We see in these text messages that were recovered from the iCloud accounts, whether they're under the Bubby contacts or under the Melanie 2 contact, this relationship between Lori and Chad. If you want to read the story, it kind of mimics them meeting in November, hooking up in hotels.
She just keeps hooking that, or, baiting that little hook. She wants them to read this atrocious story. I respect petty, ma'am, but this is cruel and unusual punishment for the jury, and you need to stop, hyping it up, because that would be the first damn thing I'd look at as a jury member. Like, let me see the story. And then I'd be like, why?
And discussing their love for each other. When we are talking about a motive and a person who wants money and who has not worked for 13 years, who has had her husband pay for her homes, her phones, her cars, allowing her to go to the temple and work out and go to lunch and restaurants, this is a big change in life if she loses all of this. But if she gets $1 million, it's not so big of a difference, along with that Social Security she'll be getting. And then obviously we know that once Charles was out of the way, Lori and Chad were able to get married. But what about those religious beliefs? Everyone that Lori knew, who she expressed them to, told you that they were not in line with the Church of Latter-day Saints. Everyone told you that she said things like she didn't need to repent, she didn't need forgiveness, she could do whatever she wanted now, that she was in a celestial state, translated, that she is spiritually and physically changing, that she's above the priesthood, that she knew who was dark and evil. You saw those text messages, both about Charles and heard from people, as well as about Brandon and Zach and Adam. People who were helping Charles were also dark or Z's. And ultimately, what did we learn? That she associated herself with Nephi, a prophet, a holy man, who was justified and asked by God to kill Laban because he was an evil, wicked king who had the tablets that God wanted him to go get. Lori was just like that. She was justified in her killing.
Lori and Moses, like this. I get where we're going. I get that we have to put out the whole Nephi thing, and it is an intrinsic part of Lori's character. But it's just too much. I think that you have a much easier sell with the money and, a fair motive. But they're not as spicy. They're not as, interesting to look at, and doesn't, add that culty kind of thing to it. So I get it, but it's still one of those that I would rather her not spend a whole lot of time, because I know sure as hell Lori's gonna bitch about it for, forever and a day. So I would like her to stick with she wanted some strange from Chad Dorkbell and all the money.
We heard from her brother, Adam, that their relationship had ended when she told him some things about her beliefs that he disagreed with, that she was turning into that celestial state, that she didn't need to eat, that she had more authority than the priesthood.
Yes.
You yourself personally, were you aware of Lori having outside?
Oh, not the time for you to have a...
Lori having any beliefs that were outside of what is accepted by the LDS religion?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you were aware of that you knew to be outside the LDS religion?
Lori told me that she was in the process of translating from a mortal human being to an immortal human being, a celestial state.
That's something that the LDS religion supports?
I haven't heard of it that it's happened here on Earth yet.
Serena Sharp told us about, again, the not repenting and Lori changing physically and spiritually.
Members of the LDS Church?
Yes.
During this time, did Lori ever tell you things about her beliefs that seemed to go against what you understood or what you were taught through the LDS Church?
Yes.
Did Lori ever tell you that she did not need to repent?
Yes, she did.
During this weekend, did Lori talk to you about her husband, Charles Vallow, being possessed?
Yes, she did.
What do you recall about her talking about her husband being possessed?
I recall that she spoke about her husband being possessed by an evil spirit, and she named the evil spirit.
Do you recall what the name was?
Yes.
What was it?
It was Ned.
N-E-D? Ned?
N-E-D.
Ned. Again, look, it's your cult. You get to do whatever you want, and you may make a demonic presence Ned. Not to mention, I feel so bad for this witness. Like, she was coming down here for a prepper convention. She was coming to Arizona. She'd never met half of these people. And, due to Mormon hospitality or whatever, she ends up at Lori's house. Can you imagine the S show that she walked into, and she doesn't even have the comfort of booze? Oh my God, this poor woman. Like, she came down here for a prepper convention and she left becoming a material witness to a murder. Isn't that fun? Well, not a material witness, just a witness.
Now, Serena Sharp was someone who met Lori in November, texted or talked with her for a while, and then was invited to that girls' weekend. One of the jury instructions you're looking at, and we'll talk about more, though, is the credibility of a witness. Serena Sharp has no dog in this fight. She knew Lori for a little while. She was invited to, I'll call it the inner circle. The defendant told her some things that went against her religious beliefs, and she said pretty much after that the defendant stopped talking to her. Now, how do we know she's being truthful? Well, we see Ned in lots of text messages. This just helps tell us that this is something Lori was telling lots of people, that her husband is possessed by this evil spirit, Ned. And we learn later that.
And again, this is where I really have all the questions. Okay, so her family, knowing the whole Nedadias of evil that has taken over Chad's or not Chad, why do I keep doing that? Damn it. Charles's body. I mean, honest to goodness, and then the family was on her side. Yeah, Charles is the real a-hole. I can't believe he's trying to get intervention when you think you're a divine being. Yeah, I mean, he's totally possessed by Ned. I mean, and the family's like, no, we must protect Lori. Again, just to go to one Thanksgiving in that household, if I were invisible, I'm there.
Like Nephi, she can get rid of him.
Do you recall Lori Vallow telling you that her husband Charles was no longer Charles, that he was now this possessed person?
Yes.
When Lori was talking to you about Ned, was she explaining that this evil spirit was now in the body of her husband?
I don't know if she used those exact terms, but that was the impression I got, yes.
So the words she used expressed to you that idea that this evil spirit Ned was now in her husband's body.
Yes.
He didn't wash his
The
kale.
other thing that Serena Sharp told us was Lori using that term zombie. You remember how upset the defendant got by her saying that. But again, why would Serena make up any of this? She has no reason to. What she recalls is that that is a term that this defendant used when speaking of people like her husband who were possessed by these evil spirits. We heard from Christina Atwood as well, the same concept that Lori Vallow repeatedly would say. Did she tell you, as well as the other women who were at this meeting in February, that her husband was possessed?
Yes.
So it wasn't just you in a private conversation?
Correct.
She was open about it?
Yes.
So again, we see this ongoing timing of Lori Vallow talking of her evil, dark husband, who she later is authorized under her religion to get rid of.
Yes. I love it. I love Mr. Mo's like, no, I'm going to be in the garage, so you won't be able to hear me and the boys loading up the van with all, the junk we're trying to get rid of. Except the garage is right below me. It's okay. But yeah, it was Ned Flanders. It was Oakley Dokley.
We know as well from Christina Atwood that there is a progression of these beliefs becoming more deviated from the LDS religion as she is meeting with her between February and June when she finally hears those words? From the time you started meeting with these gatherings in February through to June, did you start to see sort of a progression of things that Lori was telling you that seemed outside of your faith?
Yes.
Did she make statements to you that you believed went against your religion?
Yes.
Did she at any point tell you that she did not need to repent anymore?
Yes.
What is that meaningful to you in your religion?
We believe that every single person outside of Jesus Christ has reason to repent.
Fair
Other
point.
than Lori Vallow, according to her words to multiple people. So
Okay, would it be in terribly poor taste when in my imaginary meeting of Lori, when I get my interview with her when I'm famous, and I show up with an airbrushed Jesus and Lori hugging? Would that be inappropriate or hilarious? Like, I got your friend here. He's not here to take you out of jail, but he is here to be airbrushed on a t-shirt. He told me to tell you hi. And you're staying in prison.
let's take all of this, the motives and this timeline now, and talk about some of the jury instructions and all the evidence that supports
Ooh, instructions.
proof beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant is guilty. I want to start with talking to you about direct and circumstantial evidence. You have a jury instruction that tells you that evidence may be direct or circumstantial, that direct evidence is the testimony of what a witness saw, heard, or otherwise sensed, and circumstantial evidence is proof of a fact or facts from which you may find another fact. You're told the law makes no distinction between direct and circumstantial evidence. And this is relevant. The witnesses have often been questioned. Did you see, hear, or do that? What you are told is you can actually use circumstantial evidence to convict anyone. But let me give you an example of this. Imagine you are sitting on a beach. Just you, it's quiet. Off to your right, there's some rocks and you can't see around that. While you're sitting there, a person walks by, you watch them walk by and they go around the rocks and you can't see them anymore. And then someone runs up 5 minutes later and they say, hey, did you see someone come by here? You say, well, yeah, I saw them walk that way. That is direct evidence. You saw it. Now imagine you're on that same beach and it's completely empty. You close your eyes for 5 minutes, just relax. Before you closed your eyes, the beach was completely pristine. And when you open them up, now you see footprints. You can see the toes facing off to your right, the heels, and you see them go all the way around the rocks there. Somebody again runs up 5 minutes later and they say, hey, did someone come by here? And you go, well, I didn't see them, but they must have gone by in the last 5 minutes because you can see their footprints. They went that way. That is circumstantial evidence. You can infer from that.
I have yet another question. Why are all these people on my private beach? I feel like I should become a Backstreet Boy, but my private beach better have nobody walking by while I'm closing my eyes and relaxing. Now I'm tense in this hypothetical situation because I've got people walking around on my private beach. Damn. Oh, O-line read, it chafed her ass to have to wear the baby ponytail to hide her grays, and Kay was looking fabulous. And so was Kelly Jo or Nancy Jo. She was looking great too.
That someone went by and where they went. The burden of proof. The state has the burden of proof, as we absolutely should. So let's talk a little bit about what it is and what it is not. You're told that the burden of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And the instruction tells you that that leaves you firmly convinced in the defendant's guilt. You're told there are very few things in this world that we know with absolute certainty. And in criminal cases, the law does not require proof that overcomes every doubt. If, based on your consideration of the evidence, you are firmly convinced that the defendant is guilty of the crime charged, you must find him or her guilty. So I want to start by saying what proof beyond a reasonable doubt is not. It is not proof beyond all doubt. It is not proof beyond all conceivable doubt. It's not proof beyond all possible doubt, and it's not no doubt. You're told that there are very few things in life we know with absolute certainty. So just because someone says, what if? That is not a reasonable doubt. What you're told is it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. As we go through the evidence and apply it to the crimes, we will show you
Good night,
that there is no
Inspire. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for being on the replay crew. Appreciate it so much.
reasonable doubt as to this defendant's guilt. So let's start with the crime itself. Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. There are three stages in this, or three things the state must prove. One, that the defendant or her co-conspirator caused the death of another person. Well, we know that Alex Cox shot and killed Charles on July 11th of 2019. Alex called 911. Alex indicated he was the shooter. He was the only one home. It was his gun. His credit card or debit card was in there with the gun. And we know that Lori told the police that her brother killed Charles. So we know that he caused the death of, so that. Two, that they intended or knew that she or a co-conspirator would cause the death of another person. When we are
The
looking at this
Angelica
case,
Pickles.
we are looking at the defendant's words, actions, and motive. The words and actions of having her brother Alex come over on the 10th with a gun so that he would be there when Charles came over to pick up JJ. The actions that day of taking Charles's phone, ensuring that he could not leave, that he could not take his son to school. The defendant told the detectives how angry and screaming Charles was about the phone, but she didn't just give it to him, throw it at him, tell him to get out, whatever you might do. She held onto it and told the police that she walked away with it as he's trying to grab it. The defendant's actions and words show us that she is the only reason why Charles stayed in there and the only reason why Charles was shot. Then there's those 12 minutes. Defendant tried to pretend that this was a quick, angry scuffle. But Charles is there for 12 minutes. The defendant is there for 12 minutes. Alex is there for 12 minutes before she leaves. We look at her actions when she came back. She told the police her brother back. She never asks how he is. She's not concerned about his injury. She's not concerned about her husband being dead on the floor of her house, her child now without a father. The lack of words that she said there and her demeanor show again that she was well aware of what was going on and part of this incident. We look at her words to Chad, that Charles changed his life insurance policy before we got rid of him. They show her intent to kill Charles. And again, we look at the motive, money and Chad. When did this happen? The first time Charles came back into town after he found out about the affair. Finally, the state has to prove that the defendant or the co-conspirator acted with premeditation. So I'm going to talk to you about premeditation. You have a jury instruction for it, and it tells you that the defendant or the co-conspirator intended to kill another human being or knew she or the co-conspirator would kill another human being, and that after forming that intent or knowledge reflected on the decision before killing.
KZ Gypsy Muse. Well, I see that Ned spelled backward is den, as in den of vipers. You know, probably not as twisted a logic. I just think that Chad isn't that creative.
It is this reflection, regardless of the length of time in which it occurs, that distinguishes first-degree murder from second-degree murder. You're also told an act is not done with premeditation if it is the instant effect of a sudden quarrel or heat of passion. That's where you remember those 12 minutes and the calmness of her walking around with that phone and her demeanor. You're told the time needed for reflection is not necessarily prolonged, and the space of time between intent or knowledge to kill and the act of killing may be very short. So I'm going to give you an example. It's a lot of legalese, and then we'll talk about what we really have here. So imagine again, you are driving your car. You do every day. You're coming up to an intersection and you see the light turn yellow. And in that second you think, do I want to run it? Or do I want to slam on my brakes and hit stop before I go into the intersection? You think about that, and then you decide, I'm going to slam on my brakes and I'm going to stop. That is the time it takes to reflect. That is the time it takes for premeditation. But we have
I actually really like that sort of mental thought process to kind of explain. And also, when you see it just turn yellow, you push on the gas so you can get through the yellow, especially if you have someone tailing behind you. Now, if you're all on your lonesome on the highway, then yes, you slow down and come to a stop. But there you go.
a lot more than this because we have planning, not just premeditation that morning. So when we talk about the premeditation that we see, it starts at least back in June, when we have Christina telling us about Alex Cox saying that he wanted to kill Charles, Lori having no reaction to that, and instead talking about drugging Charles.
Did you hear Alex making some comments?
Yes.
And you told us that they made you uncomfortable. What were these comments?
He stated he wished that he could just kill Charles.
Okay. Was Lori around when he was saying this?
Yes, one of the times.
Okay. So he said it more than once.
Yes.
Can you describe first sort of his demeanor when he's saying this about wanting to just kill Charles?
It was jocular, just as I recall, he was standing up and just talking about it pretty loudly.
And you said one of the times that he said this, it was around Lori.
Yes.
Did she react in any way to hearing her brother say that he wished she could just kill her husband?
Not that I recall.
By
Because
July
it was normal.
9th, or when we start having this planning that we're talking about, we know that Lori Vallow is living in a house paid for by Charles Vallow. We know from even her statements to Detective Enclan that she doesn't like Charles, is what she says, but Charles won't file for a divorce. We know from her words and text messages that she wants to be with Chad Daybell, but Charles is her cash now. She hasn't worked. He pays rent, car, cell phones, her travel. And so as far back as June 9th, we're already hearing that Alex and Lori would like to not just get rid of Charles, but kill him. But if you think that June 9th wasn't the beginning of this planning, this idea, this concept that Lori and her brother have of getting rid of Charles, this evil, dark, possessed person, then we know on the 9th that there is definitely a plan by this defendant. And we see that through those text messages with Melanie, with Summer, with Alex, where she speaks of the mission, where she talks about telling Melanie, you can't leave. You got to pretend to be sick and stay here and keep track of Brandon so he doesn't come help Charles. He can't be in the picture. We need to stay here to defend ourselves from an intervention. The 10th, again, we have Melanie who is talking to her and saying that she wants to just go to this wedding. And what does Lori tell her? No, you have to stay here for the mission.
Again, Lori Vallow doesn't strike me as altogether that persuasive. How was she able to coordinate and manipulate her entire family's movements, almost like, a general getting her, knights and pawns and all of these things put together so that she has the strategic, advantage over Charles? How does her family, again, turn on Charles and think he's the weirdo? I don't get that.
The mission of stopping an intervention? No. As we continue through the 9th, we see Lori getting everyone lined up to help her. Alex, where he, again, is told that he will be like Nephi, just like her. Now, Lori tells him it's an intervention. Everyone knows, Adam told you what's an intervention? It's talking to someone. It's common language. But that's not what the defendant wants to happen. She doesn't want Charles to divorce her and lose his money. She doesn't want this intervention to happen where she loses her temple recommend. What she wants is to be like Nephi and get rid of her husband.
Well, Nephi was a prophet in the Book of Mormon. It's the first chapter. He was a prophet, very humble and faithful servant of the Lord. Ironically enough, his brothers tried to kill him at one point. But he actually ended up going.
Question: did he also become a really important person in Egypt and have a coat of many colors? Because I think I do know that story. Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Yes, I was a theater kid. Yes, I was in chorus. Yes, they put me in the back because I can't dance. You're welcome.
To Jerusalem to get these plates back, and he was run off, came back, and then went back again because the Lord asked him to. And when he did, the King Laban, who was actually a wicked king, was laying on the ground drunk in front of him, and Nephi was told to kill Laban.
Who was he told by?
The spirit, or God.
So God was using a Holy Spirit to tell him to kill Laban? And
Yes.
did he?
Yes, he did.
Was that something he anguished over?
Yes.
But ultimately, it was a justified killing.
Yes.
You heard from Detective Duncan that
Biblical
everyone he
norm.
spoke with gave this same story. And again, the defendant questioned others about this story. But what we've heard is from Detective Duncan and from Adam that Nephi is this justified killing. When we think about her religious beliefs and what she's been telling people about not needing to repent, about telling people who is dark and evil, a zombie or a Z, that she is above the priesthood, it makes sense that she feels justified in determining who should live or die, just as she told her brother on the 9th. And we know that, in fact, we're talking about a justified killing because Alex brought a gun over. He didn't bring the Book of Mormon to talk to Charles about something. He didn't bring a friend to try to record Charles saying something. He brought a gun with him. And then he waited there for his sister's husband to come into the house so he could kill him. What we see is a very planned out, premeditated murder. But let's talk about some additional premeditation.
Ooh, more
Again, as we're looking
premeditation.
at summer, we see on the 10th that Lori is having her sister update her on where Adam and Zach are staying, so she knows they're not with Charles. They're not coming over. They're not going to be interfering with their justified killing. And there's that 12-minute time where the defendant desperately wanted to rewrite the timeline as they told the police that day. This just happened. It was very quick, but it wasn't. It was 12 minutes. Charles arrives at 7:37 and Lori leaves at 7:49. During this time is when that plan, that premeditated murder occurred. So let's talk about that as well. The evidence at the scene, the physical evidence, supports this premeditated murder. Alex fired 2 shots. One of them went through Charles' center mast, exited out his back, and went into the floorboard.
Center mass. Center mast is on a ship. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not, force multiplier expertologist, but I believe it's center mass, not center mast. I call me crazy. I do believe.
The second one, Charles was on the floor, on his back, bleeding out, still able to move, and we know that because he had blood on his left hand, and he was executed as he lay there on the ground. In that time, when we talk about premeditation and reflection, as Adam had to move his hand down, reposition the gun, and discharge and pull the trigger one more time, that is premeditated first-degree murder, no matter what you believe before that. Again, when we talk about that physical evidence, we saw the fact that the location of that bullet defect in the ground matched right under Charles's left shoulder. And we heard from Dr. Baumgartner. Dr. Baumgartner told you that this was a classic sword wound. And no matter how many questions could be asked about him of maybe a bamboo shirt might stop a bullet in one location, but not in another.
Oh my God, I forgot the bamboo shirt as Kevlar argument. Oh, good Lord. Yes, I'm sure that we will be talking about how it's a double weave and a four-way stretch knit, and it's full 100%, organic cotton bamboo.
Or how many matrix-like hypotheticals where maybe Charles bounced back up and then on his way down, the bullet slowed down through him and waited till he hit the ground again before it exited. Dr. Baumgartner told you, no, those hypotheticals, those issues did not make sense. He's never seen a t-shirt stop a bullet in one location or at all. And we know Charles didn't bounce because we know he had no injuries to the back of his head. This also tells us a little bit about the shooting itself. When Charles was shot that first time through center mast, he did not fall straight back and land onto the ground, laying there on his back. If he had, he would have had bruising, abrasions on the back of his head when he hit the ground. He didn't have anything on the back of his head. Where did he have abrasions? On his knees. When he fell to the ground after being shot, do we know how long it took him to roll over, to fall onto his back before he was then shot a second time because he's still alive? You heard it could take up to 2 minutes for Charles to have died, and then he could have spoke and moved during that time period. What we do know is that he eventually ended up on his back. And while he was on his back is when he was shot the second time by Alex. This defendant and her brother in that house waiting and making sure that Charles was dead, murdered, executed. Words, actions, motive, and physical evidence all tell you what happened that morning. So let's talk about conspiracy. And I know there are a lot of layers here, and I'm just building them up for you.
It's like a parfait. I'm watching Shrek after this.
You're told in your jury instructions that conspiracy requires proof. One, the defendant agreed with one or more persons that one of them or another would engage in certain conduct. So again, we look to Lori Vallow's words. What she had been talking about for months, Charles being possessed, being dark, wanting to kill him, the discussion on June 9th, poisoning him or drugging him previously. And then when we got to July 9th, it is all coming to a head. We will be
Just
like
the
Nephi.
tip.
Her actions, having Charles come to the house, instead of him staying there, she had him stay away. Why? Because if Charles stayed at the house, couldn't have Alex come over with a gun and be ready to shoot him, right? You got to have him come in. Her actions of inviting her brother over with a gun the night before so he would be there. She knew when he would show up. He texted her, I'll be there at 7:30, pick up JJ. But most importantly, why did Charles stay in the house? Lori told the detective that Charles initially was like, oh, I'll just stay here for 20 minutes and then I'll take JJ to school. Well, she wasn't going to kill him in front of JJ. No, take JJ to Burger King. Get him out of the house. Go put him in the car. And he does that. But then she takes his phone. And she won't give it back. What she told the detective was, before this alleged Tylee bat, whatever thing you want to talk about there, that she had Charles's phone and was asking him about texting Adam. Of course, that's interesting because how would she have known that? We know she had the phone actually for a while before she did that interview. She tells the detective numerous times that Charles is telling her to give him back his phone, and she will not. That she's walking around. He's trying to get the phone. She won't give it to him. Why? Because she needs Alex to come out. He brought that gun over for a reason. So she agreed with one or more persons, her brother, Alex. That she intended to promote or assist the commission of such conduct, well, of course, we know both to promote. She is the one who on the 9th said, we will be like Nephi. It's time to stop this whole thing. Charles trying to take my temple recommend, all this stuff that's going on. Time to kill him. And of course, she assists by ensuring that Charles stays in the house when she takes that phone.
And that right there is the key piece of evidence that she was not afraid of him. Because if he was really yelling, hollering, and things like that, if he had a history of an explosive temper or, getting physical when things like this happened, she would not have the audacity and entitlement and, the full knowledge that he's not going to try to manhandle her to get his phone back. So she has all of this in the knowledge. This has not been my favorite prosecutor, to be honest with you. I think that she could have hit on these things a couple times and had a much shorter closing statement. I think her continuing to harp on and using Lori's arguments of her being like Nephi, again, you're feeding into Lori's sort of view of this, but it's not the meat and potatoes. It's kind of the same sort of reaction I had with the Karen Reed case, where I like all the Alberts and, Canton Triangle thing, but I'd much rather you show me tangible evidence of this happening or not happening. And we kind of sprinkle in the conspiracy, but we don't make it a key tenet of our case. And I get that these are Lori's words that she's using. She has used the Nephi example, but I think it's a bit overdone, and she could have been done in like 10 minutes less if she had just stopped harping on, because you don't need anything other than the money and the affair. The Nephi thing is, great for internet weirdos like me who want to get into all the weird culty stuff. But for a jury, unless you really have explanations and not just the same testimony, in my opinion, as a juror, I just want to hear the affair stuff and the money stuff. That's enough of a motive for me, given all of the other context that we have. The Nephi stuff and the weird, Mormon prawn, I definitely read, but I doubt that it would have a whole lot of bearing in my decision.
And of course, they knew that it would constitute first-degree murder. That's what Nephi did. Only unlike Nephi, where it was justified, here, ladies and gentlemen, this murder was not justified.
Becoming a theologian.
Finally, think about the demeanor when you're thinking about, again, words, actions, motive, and demeanor. When Lori comes back to the house, she is very, what did we hear that word many times? Nonchalant, calm, no questions about her brother, no questions about her husband, no questions about the house, just laughing about her neighbors. She is in absolute agreement with what has happened. She knows what's happened, and she's calm and good with it because she doesn't need to repent. She is able to determine who should live and die, and she has done that. So when we talk of the scope of conspiracy, you're told that to prove a conspiracy, it is not necessary to show a formal meeting or express agreement. But we see that from the 9th in that conversation that she and Alex had, where she tells him, you are going to have to stay near me for the next couple of days, and we will be like Nephi. You're also told that a conspiracy may be inferred from circumstances showing a common criminal objective. So, because you don't have someone who says, I heard them say, we shall conspire. You can infer that from the conduct of what happened on the 9th, the conduct of what happened on the 10th, and the conduct of what happened on the 11th. All infer to you a conspiracy of Alex coming over with his gun to shoot and kill Charles.
Like that she's making finger guns as she's talking about one.
As we again look at this in this conspiracy, again, we're looking at the same words and actions. March, Charles is no longer there. There's just an evil spirit in his body. June, Charles is still possessed, and now Alex is saying he wants to kill him. Lori is fine with this, and she says she's drugging him. or had been drugging him. And then 2 weeks before, all of a sudden, Charles knows Lori's been having this affair. Lori's words, actions, motive, and the physical evidence. Conspiracy again, we see that Lori and Alex know exactly when Charles is showing up. Alex doesn't go to the door, according to Lori, and confront Charles or tell him, we'll send JJ out and you can leave with him. The world is so difficult. How hard would that be? Bring JJ right to the door and let him leave with his dad. No, you aren't going to shoot him outside. You want to make it look like self-defense inside. As you go through this and we think about what's going on, the defendant doesn't even care. She wants her husband killed so bad that she's willing to let her brother bring over a loaded gun in an unlocked gun case in a house with a 7-year-old autistic child. That's fine. When the defendant was questioning Detective Enclench, who was talking about how hot it was outside, JJ's out in the car, but she has no problem with an unlocked gun in the house with the kid, and she's worried about her child out in the car? She's not. We know that because she's the reason Charles doesn't go back out into the car and leave. She keeps him there in the house. She is why JJ's out in the car alone. She has to keep him there until Alex comes out and can shoot and kill him. When we talk about that premeditation, obviously we're talking about that message. We know from the 9th on, they are premeditated, they are conspiring, and it's all heading to July 11th. We look at the timing of this, and this is actions and non-actions. Charles is in the house for 12 minutes. After those 12 minutes, they wait 47 more minutes before they call 911. Why? To stage the scene.
Chicken fries?
No CPR is performed. They wait for Charles to be dead, and then they talk during this time period. They talk. They could call 911, but nope, they're going to just talk. So again, you're looking at their actions, what happened and didn't happen, and the motives. There's the gun that was used to kill Charles. We're going to go through a couple of these exhibits, some of what Lori said, and it's exhibits 192 and 197, where she again says that Charles came over and said he was just going to hang out at the house for like 20 minutes, take JJ to school. She, of course, tells him to go. And when JJ's out in the car, she has Charles's phone, and she won't give it back. And no matter how much she says that Charles is screaming at her to give the phone back, she won't. And all of this conversation about Charles demanding the phone back is prior to her statement to Detective Enclench that Tylee comes out with this back. This is all her doing. This is her as an accomplice assisting and promoting this murder. Lori is setting up Charles so Alex can shoot him.
And with JJ?
So he put it in the car,
Okay.
in the driveway, and then he came back in, right? So I kissed JJ goodbye. He came back in, and his phone was on the counter, and I had his phone. And he was like, giving me my phone, and I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting, blah, 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 you know, whatever. Because he's like acting really weird, like he's plotting something against me. Like, I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what did you come here for, you know? He's been talking to my other brother.
Yeah, because he was there to get his son. He wasn't plotting anything but to be able to take his son and leave your crazy ass.
And my brother came into town at the same time last night, and I haven't talked to my brother in a while, my other brother, and I was like, and so he was texting him on the phone when he first got to my house, and I'm like, why are you texting Adam? Like, do you even talk to him? Like my other brother.
So when you listen to these clips and the interview of Lori Vallow, you have to put into context. This is 9:52 in the morning when this part of this interview is occurring. And she's telling the detective that she confronts Charles about texting her brother Adam. Now, she's had the 47 minutes she's been driving around, and then that time at the house when she's waiting outside to learn all of those texts and what's been going on between her brother and Adam and Charles. And so she is now mixing this in to her interview. And so when you're listening to her interview, we know she's trying to work out this, what happened, how did this go? You can watch her demeanor as well. And as you're going through this, see how she's just telling a story here, like what happened, almost chuckling about it.
Okay. So this morning he comes back in and.
He comes back in, I wouldn't give him his phone, he was screaming at me to give him his phone. He was very worried about whatever was on his text that he did not want me to see. And so I was just holding it there and he was screaming at me. And I was kind of walking towards around the house with it so he couldn't get it. He's like reaching for it and stuff like that.
So again, JJ's in the car.
I'll take things that never happened for 800, Alex.
Tylee's not out, Alex isn't out, and she is making sure that he doesn't leave. She's walking around the house, holding his phone, refusing to give it to him, making sure her autistic child is sitting out in the car even longer so that she can ensure that exactly what they've been planning happens, that Alex has time to come out with the gun that he brought over and shoot and kill Charles. This defendant is the only reason why Charles didn't leave with JJ. This defendant is the one who provoked Charles by taking his phone and refusing to get it back. This defendant is the one who ensured that Charles was inside without JJ so Alex could shoot him. And this defendant is the person who set up Charles so that her brother Alex could shoot him. So let's talk about staging the scene. We know obviously from the first responders that when they arrived, no CPR was given. You heard from Officer Wojtecki that when he felt Charles's neck, he thought he was dead already, but they still let the first responders in because they've been told CPR had been given. And what do we know? That they arrived within a few minutes. No one had ever tried to save Charles. No blood had been pushed out of him from CPR, whether strong or light. He had been dead for quite a while. His skin was mottled when they started cutting open his shirt and looking to the back, and lividity, the blood pooling, was occurring already. So they kind of knew something was off with that timeline. So what about the scene itself? The bat. It is placed to the right of Charles to look like he was using it. He got shot and it went flying behind him. Well, obviously we've heard from Kay.
Okay, Petty respects Petty, and her exaggerated eye roll as she dropped the fake bat. Madam, we salute you.
Charles's sister, that he was left-handed. We know from the blood evidence on his hand, he was left-handed. There's no damage to that mirror. There's no damage to the drywall. There's no damage anywhere, like this bat is being swung around in this horrific fight that's going on of grappling. The injury to Alex Cox's head. You heard it was a small 1-inch cut that he was using a paper towel to pat, and at times, as you watch that Exhibit 1, rubbing it, making sure it stays bleeding. There is no blood at the scene from this giant grappling thing going on that Lori Vallow wanted them to believe. His head is bleeding and they're grappling around and he's being beat with this bat, and yet not one drop of blood on the floor. Not one drop of blood going down the hallway when he put that gun away. Not one drop of blood on the gun itself. And then the shoes, left by the door to look like Lori Vallow had run out in fear after this horrific incident that they planned. What we know from the Walgreens video is that she did enter the store with shoes, something on her feet. So we're going to go through. We know Charles again, left-handed.
Field with your brother.
Yeah,
What position did your brother play?
he was a pitcher. He was very, very good. He was a left-handed pitcher, and they're very hard to hit against.
Okay. Did he bat right or left-handed?
He was left-handed.
Did he do everything
Yes,
left-handed?
we're just getting through the state, and then
So we know that Charles
Lori.
batted left-handed, not right-handed. And what we know is Lori Vallow had a story about how Charles was using that bat. And it becomes very important as well when we're talking about the staging of the scene. This is Exhibit 193.
Yeah, she was outside. And
then what happened?
Then they got up from that, and my brother had like stepped back, I guess, and then Charles was coming with me to that and yelling at me to give him his phone still, because I had it in my hand. It was all really quickly. And then when I went around kind of in the circle, then my brother was there.
When you said when you were going around and he was coming at you with the bat, how was he holding the bat?
Just like that, like backwards, almost in one arm.
Like he was swinging it, like swinging it backwards?
so he was doing a backhanded
Like he was swinging
tennis
backwards at
swing.
me, not frontwards.
Okay.
So Lori Vallow, detective, and planned that Charles is swinging the bat backwards. Now, if the bat was like this when he was shot, his arm would have been shot. Covers his center mass. So we know he wasn't here. So if he's out here, where would the bat go? Down, out, somewhere that way to his left. It would not end up thrown up above him. And if it wasn't there again, Charles would have been shot through the arm. Obviously, Alex forgot that Charles was left-handed. So when he placed that, like he was coming at him with a bat, their stories didn't quite match up with the evidence. So if we rely on Lori's
Lori not
story of
matching with
how
reality, you
Charles was
don't
holding the
say.
bat, then there's zero way that that bat would end up where it ended up. And again, we know he's left-handed from not only Kay, but his own admissions of that blood on his hand. So we see the scene is staged, this bat that is so necessary to try to ensure this justified killing is legally justified and not just spiritually justified. When we talk about the scene as well, and you're looking at where Charles was, at least when that second shot went through him, you can see in the photograph to the right, the shot to Charles's chest, right between his nipples, and the shot to Charles's abdomen down lower. We know that that first shot through his chest, that Charles would have been facing a little more towards the open area there where we see the hallway and the kitchen. And we know that because there was the bullet trajectory Detective Cruz told you about that entered that far east wall. We know there was stippling, and so the defendant would have been, well, her brother would have been within 2 to 4 feet of the muzzle of that gun within Charles, 2 to 4 feet. We know from the lack of that injury to the back of his head that he didn't fall straight back. We know from the blood on his hand that he was still alive after he was shot. And we know the lack of stippling for that shot to his abdomen and that trajectory, and even the defendant's own statements that she saw her brother at Charles's feet, that he would have stood there at Charles's feet when he fired
That
that
is
second
something
shot as he
that
was
I do
laying on the
wonder
floor.
about.
You have the bat, Exhibit 249. You look at the edge of it, you see the photograph of the edge of it. There is no blood and no damage to this bat. Regardless of how many times the defendant was hoping that blood was invisible, we have all cut ourselves and seen that blood is red. And there was no blood on this bat. There is no blood on this bat. There is no damage to this bat. So you have a semi-professional baseball player who has a bat in his hand and he sees someone with a gun and doesn't beat him with it, take his head off with it, knock him unconscious with it.
Yes.
Instead, all we see on this bat is 0 damage and 2 partial prints. No prints of a body or smushed skin on it. Someone that's sweating from a fight that's left a large arm print on it or anything else. Nope, just 2 partial little prints on it. When you think about what is there and what isn't there, does the evidence of this bat fit in at all? It doesn't. We look at Charles's watch. No damage to it. No scratches to it. No dings to it as he's grappling on the floor like Lori wants you to believe. We know that at some point, Charles is standing and shot, and we know that final shot, he's on the ground. We know he fell to his knees at some point. And when you look at that physical evidence and the lack of damage or anything on that bat, again, what makes sense is that Charles fell to his knees after that first shot. We know that there is 12 minutes where the defendant and her brother are still together there so that Alex can get this 1-inch cut to the back of his head.
And thank you, Marissa, for being a member for 15 months, and Lord Chippy for Lori, too. Yeah. I mean, Lori, there are so many people. Here, I almost didn't do a Lord Chippy section this morning because Mr. Stearns about made me lose faith in humanity yesterday. So I didn't know if I was going to be in a space where I could make fun of people instead of, maybe nuke my channel by saying some of the things that people might not get are jokes. So I was like, let's pick out ones that don't bother me and don't have, kids with them because I definitely needed no children. Yes, that's what we should every Best Buy person should be asked, which watch will hold up to like a real life scuffle. I don't know what Chad was wearing. I'm guessing a Casio with a calculator on it, but that's just me. Or anything that could be found in Walmart for $8.
That's barely bleeding, that he uses a paper towel to dab at and rub. The shoes that the defendant ran out of on her way out. You have the exhibit. You can see black strapped across her toes as she enters and exits the Walgreens. And then you see that she's wearing the flip-flops when she comes back to the scene. What do we know? That the police did not search Charles's rental car. Credibility. You are given a credibility instruction and you use it for everyone, including the defendant.
Ooh.
You're told that you really evaluate people the same way. You're looking for any inconsistencies in their stories, any reasons why they may have a motive or bias to lie, any prejudice they may have, and then you look at everything in light of reason, common sense, and experience. When you think of the testimony of the people who come here and talk to you, Christina Atwood, Serena Sharp, Nancy Jo Hancock, Adam Cox, Dr. Baumgartner, the detectives, Robin Smith Scott, Mark Sari, what benefit do these people have in being untruthful to you? They have body cameras, they have prior documents, and they have memories of what this defendant said.
Marissa says there's a Mickey Mouse watch in my home somewhere, and its alarm that goes off at 10:24 a.m. each day, and I still can't find the damn thing. I know. And then by the time you've got it narrowed down to sort of a spot, it'll stop going off. Yeah, I've had little boys who claimed and swore that they needed a watch, and then yeah, the little things get lost and they set alarms on them. It's a trial.
But the credibility of Lori Vallow is something you do need to consider. And you start with her demeanor that day, where she wasn't worried about anything when she arrived. Her brother has allegedly been hit in the head with a bat by her husband, who plays semi-pro ball. She doesn't even worry about him. She knows he's not hurt. He's fine. And why does she know that? Because that was staged. When she's there and we see her on body cam arriving, she's just nonchalant and calm. And I know the defendant wanted to make sure that it was clear that everyone else was calm, but no one else had just allegedly seen their husband get shot and killed by their brother.
Fair point.
When you were looking at the reasonableness of her testimony, you have to consider it in the light of reason, common sense, and experience. And the way that she was acting and reacting that day.
3 things that are in no way applicable to Lori Vallow: reasoning, experience, and, well, logic.
As well as her own statements, do not fit the evidence, do not fit the physical evidence. And you'll see her credibility throughout this whole case has been questionable. Her credibility
had
of Social
credibility
Security.
to
What
begin
did we
with?
learn? That on July 11th, she tells Detective Enclan that she and Charles are separated. Exhibit 187. We are not living together. Charles rented her house. We're separated. But on August 12th, when she needs to make sure she gets some money, she tells Social Security, when they ask, are you living together at the time of death? Yes. You also learned that she was not truthful with Social Security when she got remarried. She did not tell them about that either. So you know she's been untruthful to Social Security twice. Why is that relevant?
Lying to
Because
a
you're judging
federal
the credibility
agency.
of Lori Vallow throughout all of this. Life insurance. We know that she said Charles was accidentally shot. We know that was not true. She wanted to make things seem like she had nothing to do with the murder. But we know that Alex Cox intentionally shot Charles. Whether or not she wants to claim it's self-defense or not, there was nothing accidental about shooting him twice. Then that second call to Banner Life Insurance, where she tells Robin Smith Scott a few different things to garner sympathy, and she asked her if she could do anything about the change in beneficiary.
I really can't give too much information, but I can tell you that the beneficiary was changed in March of this year. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what he was doing since we have 5 kids and we've been married for 15 years. Oh, I'm sorry.
So Lori tells this woman We have 5 kids, which, if you want to count them all and admit that 3 of them are adults, then okay. Really, they have one kid in common. Tylee, you learned, was actually getting Social Security survivor benefits from her dad's death starting in 2018. Lori's son Colby isn't living with them. Charles' son's never lived with them. Why does she say these things? She can't help it. She just wants to just make herself seem better than she is. What about the credibility of her interview, even during the police interview? We talked about a few things, but one of the things she told the detective.
And I didn't file anything or whatever. And then he filed something against me and said, I'm only going to get supervised visits because I'm crazy and blah, 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 you know, the story. And so I just didn't talk to him for like 30 days and let him take care of him and let him see what I've been.
So again, she can't even be honest and say 2 months. She had to have 30 days. I was kind enough to just leave my husband with my son for 30 days. What we know is that Lori Vallow was gone a total of 78 days, 58 while she's flying to Hawaii, going to Idaho and back with Chad.
As you do.
And who's taking care of JJ? Charles. And Kay is coming here regularly to help take care of JJ, to help run the business. And then eventually on March 28th, that's when Charles finally decides he hasn't been able to find Lori. He doesn't know where she is. He's going to move to Houston to be closer so his sister can help him more easily. And this is when Lori finally shows back up. So again, even the simplest thing of just trying to be honest about how long she's been gone, she has to minimize it and make herself seem better.
With your car.
The shoes. Oops. If this will play. When she was questioning Detective Enclam, she was asking her if it was hot in July and if she would need shoes to go take her son to school. But of course, what we know is that we saw her with those shoes.
Yes, Tammy Fayette. Kay is his sister's name. I think that her mother had passed on prior to this, but Kay Woodcock. Now, she is the grandmother of JJ. Her biological son had JJ. It wasn't a good situation for either the biological mother or son. Kay and her husband tried to take care of JJ for a little bit, but realized that they were, maybe not in a stage of health or, energy that they could give, commit to what a young child who was going to have some special needs would have or need. So Charles and Lori adopted him. But it is kind of confusing. It did take me a little bit to figure out the characters and all of this because of sort of the tangled family connections and then legal definitions, but still familial relations. So it is one of those cases where you're like, wait, who are you and where do you go?
On as she went into Walgreens. So again, it's continued trying to garner sympathy and just being untruthful about whatever she feels like being untruthful about. And then we look at the credibility in that timeline, that body cam.
Well, now that you're not in Santana, this is your home. Right. Gotcha. Right. Okay. Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here? Okay. How long have you lived here? Like 3 weeks. Oh, geez. Yeah. Okay. That's why the neighbors know. Gotcha. Like, hi, neighbor. Sorry. Are you working?
So
again,
here she
no
is,
one acts like
47 minutes after leaving the house, laughing and smiling with the detective about the fact that her husband is dead inside the house. Her brother is sitting on the curb, allegedly with this very serious injury from a baseball bat. When you look at that credibility of the defendant, you have to look at everything together and what fits, again, with the physical evidence and what doesn't. Finally, let's talk about the justification defenses. What we know is that Lori Vallow thought she was like Nephi, that she was justified in killing Charles. That her brother, who was supposed to be like her, was also justified in killing Charles.
Nephi Jr.
But Lori Vallow is not justified under Arizona law, nor is Alex. So let's go through the different justification defenses. First thing that you have to consider for every one of these, self-defense, defense of a third person, or crime prevention, is the non-justification for use of deadly physical force. You are told, if a person is not just, or a person is not justified in using or threatening physical force or deadly physical force against another in response to verbal provocation alone. So Charles yelling and screaming at her to give his phone back does not justify you shooting him. Or a person is not justified in using or threatening deadly physical force if the defendant or co-conspirator provoked the other's use or attempted use of unlawful physical force. So we know here Lori provoked Charles by taking his phone and refusing to give it back. So again, when we look at every one of these defenses, you'll see not only do they not apply, but none of them is the defendant entitled to. This is not self-defense.
Oh, that's going to chape her ass.
In self-defense, you're told.
Lori feels entitled to everything, and she's a transmogrified being. I mean, I was kind of hoping tea kettle, but she chose deification. But there you go. I am working up to getting to transmogrification, you know, but Miss McGonagall's a really mean teacher, and she makes you do math.
That a person, a reasonable person, can use deadly physical force if they believed that deadly physical force was immediately necessary to protect against another's use or apparent attempted or threatened use of unlawful deadly physical force, and the person used or threatened no more deadly physical force than would have appeared necessary to a reasonable person in this situation. We know that Lori Vallow used Charles's phone to get him to come back inside, and she used his phone to keep him inside and give her brother time to come out and shoot and kill Charles. We know from the physical scene itself that Charles did not use a bat. We know from the physical evidence of Alex's 1-inch cut to his head and the lack of blood or concussion, the lack of damage to the mirrors, the walls, the location of the bat in relation to Charles, they all tell us that Charles did not use a bat. We know that Charles was a semi-professional baseball player. This would not have ended that way if he had had a bat. But even if you somehow think that he did have a bat and he was swinging it at Alex, the defendant, whoever, he still was not justified in shooting him when he was on the ground. It has to be immediately necessary to protect against another's use. When Charles is on the ground and he is shot that second time, there is no threat to anyone. And so that is not self-defense.
Counsel, I need to give my court reporter a break unless you think you'll be done in the next 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
When we look at the physical evidence, again, we know that Charles was on the ground, shot, and so this is not self-defense. And we know from the physical evidence at the scene, the projectile into the floorboard, this is not self-defense. Third party. You're told that a person is justified in using or threatening deadly physical force in defense of a third person, I presume here Lori Vallow. If a reasonable person in this situation would have believed that deadly physical force was necessary to protect against another's use, again, of unlawful deadly physical force against a third person, and they used only what was necessary for a reasonable person under the situation. What do we know? Lori Vallow told Detective Enclan that she wasn't even in the room when she heard the shot, that she had gone around into the kitchen. Who's he protecting at that point? What third person that's no longer there is he protecting? You can't protect against a future, what might happen, or what already occurred. It has to be now. And Lori Vallow herself put herself outside the room when her brother shot Charles. So there is no third-party defense. But again, the same thing applies. Even if you thought so, that second shot removes any possibility of being justified. Crime prevention. This is the exact same thing, only in a slightly different stated
Stop
way.
or my mama will
But like
shoot.
self-defense, it allows a person to use deadly physical force against another to the extent a reasonable person would have believed that deadly physical force was immediately necessary to prevent Charles from committing aggravated assault against Lori Vallow. We know she's not in the room. Even if he had that bat and had been coming at her and then she left the room, that crime is over. And again, even if you believe he had the bat, you cannot shoot him while he's on the ground. That is not what crime prevention permits you to execute a person. Finally, there's mere presence. You're told that guilt cannot be established by a defendant's mere presence at the crime scene, mere association with another person at the crime scene, or mere knowledge that a crime is being committed. Lori Vallow wasn't just present at this crime scene. She brought her brother to the crime scene.
Lori Vallow is no mere cat. She is, in fact, all of the cats. No mirror needed. This is not Schrodinger's, animal. She is, in fact, not a mere cat. She's a conspiracy cat.
She ensured that he brought a gun with him. She ensured that JJ was outside, and she ensured that Charles stayed inside. She was not merely present. She was a person who was actively participating in this crime. Ladies and gentlemen, we have talked about the evidence in this case. Evidence that was presented to you through witnesses who took the stand and exhibits that were admitted for you to review. Remember the evidence of Lori Vallow's motive. Charles's life insurance, Chad Daybell. Remember Lori Vallow's own words of wanting to get rid of Charles, of drugging him, her acceptance of her brother's statements that he wanted to kill Charles, how she used Melanie and Summer to plan her mission and ensure that Charles didn't have help from Brandon or Zach or Adam. Her words to Alex about it all coming to a head, that he had to stay near her and they would be like Nephi, justified in killing Charles. And finally, her words to Chad Daybell on July 18th, confessing to the killing when she said Charles had changed the life insurance before we got rid of him. Look at her actions and demeanor, having her brother come over on the 10th to her house with a loaded .45 caliber handgun, creating the one and only reason why Charles stayed inside the house, why he didn't just take JJ to school.
Tammy Fayette, the judge and the prosecutor did a lot of protecting of Lori because Lori wanted to open, avenues of questioning that would have brought up or potentially could have allowed to be brought up the fact that she has been convicted of the kids' murders and, things like that. So the jury was actually protected from this knowledge, but Lori did her damnedest to try to get it in.
12 minutes that Charles is at the house before Lori leaves in the car, the 47 minutes after that before they call 911, her demeanor when she comes back, not caring that anyone has been hurt, her demeanor on the body-worn camera, during her interview, what you heard about during the drive. Think about her credibility, how she cried for you in her opening statement. You certainly didn't see her cry on that body camera footage. You didn't hear about her crying as she was being driven to the Family Advocacy Center, and you did not see her cry in her interview.
Good point.
Finally, think about the physical evidence that proves that Lori and Alex staged this scene, that Charles was never in possession of that bat when he was shot by Alex, or either of the shots. That instead he was executed that day for this defendant's benefit. The physical evidence disproves beyond a reasonable doubt that Lori Vallow and Alex Cox were justified under the law in killing Charles. The jury instructions tell you to use reason, common sense, and experience. Charles Vallow is dead today because this defendant and her brother Alex Cox conspired to kill him. They planned it out, and they had their weapons, and they orchestrated a way to ensure that Charles was back in the house where he was shot and killed for money and Chad Daybell. The evidence proves to you that Lori Vallow Daybell is guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and the state asks you to hold her accountable and find her guilty. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take our 15-minute afternoon recess. I'll remind the jurors to remember the admonition. We'll resume in 15 minutes.
I will say that I understand what all she had to cover, but I do feel like she spent a lot more time. She could have gone over the basics, the generalized money, life insurance, and affair motives, touched upon the Nephi just a bit, put in the video clips that would have illustrated, but that felt like it was about an hour and a half, or at least an hour too long. All right, let's listen to Lori again. Buckle your seatbelts.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the state of Arizona has the 100% burden of proving that I committed a crime, a grievous crime, conspiracy to commit premeditated murder of my husband, Charles Vallow. The state has the burden of proving to you that this event was not self-defense. In your jury instruction,
My wigs are still packed up. Unfortunately, real life and unpacking means that I kind of have to wait until the closet's ready to get all of my stuff out. And I have to, okay, I don't know if it's just my one cat, but my one cat, Loki, is deathly in love with all of my wigs. And I've had to hide my wigs. So the Lori one is currently hiding out so he doesn't eat it. I don't know if he just wants to be fabulous, if I need to make cat wigs for him, but it is in a safe space because I cannot leave it out on its little headstand. It has to be in a bag because he will eat it. He has destroyed some good wigs. I need help. I have a cat who's destroying my wigs.
under the instruction, use of force in crime prevention, the last line reads, if the state fails to carry this burden, then you must find the defendant not guilty. In the law, under your jury instruction titled Justification for Defense of a Third Party, the last line reads, if the state fails to carry this burden, you must find the defendant not guilty. Under your jury instruction titled Justification for Self-Defense, the last line reads, if the state fails to carry this burden, you must.
It is too early for me to have the amount of gummies that it's going to take to make this not a train wreck. So in closing statements, I would like to say that if you simply look at everything from the perspective of my truth and ignore facts that I find irrelevant, you will find me not guilty. And the state even says it beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm not reasonable, I'm extra.
Must find the defendant not guilty. In your jury instruction, under presumption of innocence, it states, the law does not require the defendant to prove innocence. Every defendant is presumed by law to be innocent. Under the burden of proof, it explains that the state's burden is this. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. If, on the other hand, you think there's a real possibility that he is not guilty.
Lori, only you are like, there is some reasonable doubt here. I mean, I am all the reasonable and I have all the doubts. I done told you I didn't conspiratize with anyone. Well, I'm glad we're getting a reread of the jury instructions. This is going to be magical.
You must give him the benefit of the doubt and find him not guilty. In Arizona, self-defense is defined as not being a crime. So let's look at what we've learned in this trial. We learned that a shooting occurred and that 911 was called, that law enforcement was notified. We learned that
Eventually, I like how you're doing the cliff notes, but you're kind of conveniently leaving out the whole staging of the crime scene and, you know, checking his phone and going to get, you know, chicken fries, which I might go get for lunch. Honest to goodness, I have been craving chicken fries since I started this trial. So I might be going to get me my own chicken fries. This is how you know this heifer did not write this until the day before, because this has all the hallmarks of a report that you wrote the night before at 12 p.m. after telling your mom that you would need a poster board for the next morning. The definition of democracy is defined in Webster's as a noun. Democracy is very important because we live in one, so I'm told. In closing, Webster's dictionary defines democracy as... This is terrible, Lori. I thought you'd do better. I mean, you are a god.
fire, EMS, and Chandler police arrived at the scene. We learned that my brother, Alex Cox, came out of the house with his hands up as directed by 911 and was questioned by the police in the driveway. We learned that I came up with my daughter Tylee, and we were told to wait by the car until police would speak with us. We learned from Detective Inklin on the stand that we asked for Tylee's medication from the house for her panic attacks, but it was not given to her. We learned that eventually my brother Alex was taken in a police car to the Chandler Police Department uncuffed. We learned in this trial that my daughter Tylee and I were also taken to Chandler Police Department in a police van. We heard from Detective Inklin's testimony that her goal was to make small talk with us. And
The jury will determine what the testimony did or did not show. Go ahead.
And Lori, no, she wasn't where you could be recorded, and she didn't want to have a talk with all of the witnesses together. So she kept it on, kind of small talk topics because, again, there are some sort of standard operating procedures, even if it's not an in-custody interrogation, that you want to follow. And getting your reactions on video, getting, Tylee's reaction on video and away from each other is something she kind of has to do. But we all know a woman like this, or a person like this, doesn't even have to be a woman, that you guys could be in the same, watching the same movie and they have seen a completely different genre, or they were right with you and they're going to tell you how something happened that has no bearing on reality. This chick has never even lived in the zip code near truth.
that her goal was to make the small talk with us and all the way to the station so she could speak with us separately before we would talk about what actually happened. We learned that all three of us were separated and taken to 3 interview rooms where we each told police of the events of the day, each from our own perspective.
Denise, so if Alex was questioned someplace other than the driveway, does that cause reasonable doubt? I think that now, and another thing that was kind of interesting, if you do watch the entire body cam, is how Alex came out. He was told to come outside because he did, when he called 911, said, hey, I just shot my brother-in-law, I'm not armed or dangerous to the police officers. He came out with a phone, a black phone in his hand, and his hand's kind of not even up, like it was sort of a half-ass up. So he had absolutely no fear of the police either. But he was told to come outside. So I don't think that him going outside is an indication of guilt. If anything, I mean, again, it just shows the entitlement and audacity of both Alex and Lori, thinking that they could do what they wanted and be treated like they could order around the police and, get their managers to get them back into the house that is now a crime scene. Because panic attack medicine, that's maybe why you shouldn't have set up the scene at your home with all your stuff that you needed.
And answered all questions asked of us. We saw snippets of that interview in the trial here. The state did not show you the entire interview. Most of my police interview is admitted, though, into evidence in this exhibit. It's number 286. And I would encourage you to watch that entire interview when you start your deliberations. It is important. It is important for you to determine for yourselves my demeanor and not listen to anyone else.
Ma'am, I don't want to be close to your demeanor. I mean, I'm getting the fumes over here and it's a whole lot uncomfy. So I'm going to stay the hell away from your demeanor.
You can see it with your own eyes and hear it with your own ears. We heard from several witnesses that because this event was almost 6 years ago, that their memories of the events and statements were probably better back then. Well, my police interview happened that very morning, and I told the police the events from my perspective at that time. It is admitted into evidence and will answer many of your questions. You did not see Tylee's interview, but we did learn from Detective Inklin that she did an interview that morning as well. You did not see Alex's interview, but we learned that Alex was interviewed that morning by Detective Moffett, the original case agent, whom we did not hear from in this trial. The state chose not to show you those interviews or let you listen to the 911 call.
The jury shall disregard that last statement. Okay, the jury can only consider what was admitted into evidence.
We learned in this trial from Officer Kautheim's testimony that Alex was injured on the back of his head with a bump and, according to his testimony, a 1-inch laceration. We did not see those pictures.
But he tells everyone it's 6 inches, but it was this big, I swear. What in the name of The state decided not to show you evidence. What in the Lord of frickin' Daryl Brooks?
Documenting that injury as well. We learned in this trial that we did not know, the three of us, that our interviews were being recorded. We learned that Alex's phone was taken by police and put into an evidence bag, according to Detective Duncan, and that no digital copy of Alex's phone was taken by the Chandler Police Department, even though this is their normal protocol. We learned that Alex's phone was returned to him that same day with no further inquiries. We learned that after my interview and Tylee's interview that we were introduced to a victim's advocate and that gave us further instructions in another room where Tylee and I were reunited. We learned that soon after that, all three of us, Alex, Tylee, and myself, were taken in another van and dropped off back at our house. We learned that we were instructed at that time that we could not enter the house yet, that we were directed by law enforcement to take the rental car, since all three of our cars were inside the police tape. We were directed to return later in the afternoon when the scene was cleaned up. We learned in this trial that we did as directed and left the house in the rental car close to 12 p.m. We learned that we did not return to the house until contacted by Detective Inkland to return to the house so that Alex could walk the detectives through what they call a walkthrough. We learned that many detectives were present during that walkthrough with Alex. We learned that Detective Duncan was there, Detective Coons was there, Detective Moffett was there, Detective Werther was there, and an officer with a body cam was there. And yet, we were told by Detective Duncan, the case agent on this case on the stand, that because of some problem, the walkthrough was not recorded. Detective Duncan also informed us that he does not know if any of the people present wrote a report about it. We can infer from Detective Duncan's testimony.
No, what he said is that typically the officers are not a singular detective will write a report of the walkthrough, someone who led it or who was talking closer with Alex. He did say that there would be different, parts of the report where one or the other of the detectives would speak with more authority on what they were covering in that particular case. God, she just hears what she wants to hear. I mean, honestly, I have that superpower too. Like when Mr. Moe says, don't buy any more Sailor Moon cross-stitch kits, and I heard, wait until they have a sale. So, I do suffer a little bit from the selective hearing only what I want to hear itis.
And the fact that we don't have an evidence, any body cam footage of the walkthrough and no reports talking about it, that there are none, even though this would be crucial evidence for you, the jury, to have.
Sustained. The jury should disregard that comment. Again, the jury can only consider it.
Do you hide food from the feral kids? So I do have a snack drawer. Now, I will say that here lately, and I do need to get better, like this is a full mo-fessional. I have not been eating the best. It's mainly that like I'll get hungry, and I made a huge pot of bacon French onion soup, and I did it the way I liked it. I'm just not used to, and maybe it will become second nature. I'm still feeding the body I used to have, if that makes any sense, because like I'll get a big old cup, and I would just like a big old bowl, and I would eat it all, and now I'm having to downsize to a mug. So it is weird kind of learning how much food I can actually eat now. It's a first world problem. It's not a problem I've ever had really in my life. Always been kind of the fluffy kiddo, which is normal. Again, fluffy, skinny, semi-fluffy. We can all be healthy to our body, and our body's healthy isn't going to look the same for everyone. Have I covered all my bases so I don't get called a body shamer? Okay, now that we've gotten that important thing out of the way, I still haven't learned how much I can actually eat. So I'm trying to do better with like eating on a schedule and things like that, and drinking protein shakes, though they're prepackaged, so I know there's no cyanide in them. But yeah, I don't know where we were even going with this one. But I do hide food. I do have snacks that I particularly like that I'll hide In fact, like I had Mr. Moe buy me popsicles and we hid them so I could have one out of the box. But yes, I do. And if I were really rich, I mean, there would be signs. I'd have my own refrigerator in my room, like a full size one, so I could have all my ice cream and keep it safe in my room. Don't give me any ideas. I'm going to need to really grind. Become Queen Grifter to get my own refrigerator. Ooh, goals and motivation.
Evidence that was admitted into testimony. I'm sorry, testimony that was admitted into evidence or exhibits that were admitted into evidence.
The state of Arizona has the obligation to show you evidence to prove that this event was not self-defense, as stated by the only 3 witnesses. So why not show the jury all the evidence that they gathered?
Again, sustained. The jury can only consider the evidence and testimony that was admitted into evidence.
We learned in this trial that Alex fully cooperated with law enforcement. We learned that my daughter Tylee fully cooperated with law enforcement. We learned that I fully cooperated with law enforcement. We learned that law enforcement treated all of us that day kindly and courteously on July 11th, 2019. That law enforcement treated us that day.
This isn't a Berenstein Bears episode. I don't care how Officer, Kilpatrick treated you on the day when he didn't know all of the sus things behind it. I'm Celestial Force, this is not a rewatch. We are watching at our own speed. She's actually up for sentencing on both of the cases in Arizona on Friday. I do have that tentatively set up, but I'm waiting for them to make sure that, they actually put the stream up for her sentencing. But she has been adjudicated, guilty, all the guilty. We will be going after today with the closing statements and then the verdict. We are going to then head over to the Brandon Boudreaux case tomorrow, possibly. I do have scheduled tomorrow the Brian Kohberger sentencing, so I don't know how long that's going to take. That being said, if there's enough time and that wasn't the whole day, and I'll be really honest with you guys, I think that the way to honor the victims in these trials that we cover is to cover the sentencing and victim impact statements, but they are incredibly difficult to sit through. And yesterday I had a full adult beverage after the Stephen Stearns. So I don't know how I will be after the Brian Kohberger, but we might get into the Brandon Boudreaux tomorrow, depending on how I feel after that one. That is supposed to start tomorrow at, I know it's like Mountain Time. Jedi Jess is awesome, and she put it up there for me when I was trying to do math in my head, which is obviously not a thing that I can do. 11 a.m. Eastern time, so that's when I'll be doing that tomorrow. Let's continue with this heifer. And then I do know that there is a rebuttal from the state, but she has annoyed me with her amount. Okay, so she kept it at 5 minutes. I was like, if this is an hour, we are skipping through this. All right, let's continue with the world according to Lori Daybell.
Like this was self-defense. We were not given instructions to stay in town. We were not given instructions that we were under investigation of any kind. On July 11th, 2019, we were interviewed by Chandler Police and released with no further instructions.
Have a great lunch, Wolf.
We learned that Chandler Police put out a press release that day on July 11th.
I'll sustain that objection to the extent the jury is to determine what the facts did or did not establish.
Under Arizona law, I had the right to self-defense. Tylee had the right to self-defense. Alex had the right to self-defense.
In certain circumstances, it's not a universal right. It's circumstantial. There are conditions that need to be met. It's a conditional defense. you have to have certain reasonable or, well, levels of reasonableness that you're attaining. You do have the right, but it has to be circumstantial. Again, there's a reason that these cases are so contentious. There's a reason that we have such a divide on the Carmelo Anthony case or the Kyle Rittenhouse case, or what other self-defense ones have we done? The Kim Potter case. These are, yes, but there is a objective and subjective standard for reasonableness, and you cover not one of those damn, points.
This event was not planned or expected. It was shocking. We learned in this trial that Chandler Police Department neglected to do a thorough investigation. We learned that they did not swab Alex's hands for gunpowder residue. We learned that they did not swab my hands for gunpowder residue. We learned that they did not swab Tylee's hands for gunpowder residue. We learned that they did not luminol the gun. We learned that they did not luminol the bat.
They wouldn't luminol the gun or the bat. This woman is, look, she's latent French, as Baker would say. But sure, luminol the gun. And I'm sure in a self-defense case, which is an affirmative defense, so basically admitting you did it, and when he said on the phone on the 911 call that he'd done it, you don't really need gunshot residue tests unless you firmly believe, but then that wouldn't be giving you the presumption of innocence, because then you would want the police to treat you as though you were a chronic and horrific liar like you are. So, Lori, you can't have it both ways. You either want them to presume that you're innocent and that you're telling the truth, or treat you like criminals and gunshot residue, all of you.
They did not test the DNA on the bat that they collected. They did not test the floorboard. They did not test the projectile. They did not test my husband's shirt. They did not search the rental car. They did not search any of our 3 cars that were there at the scene. They did not test the gun until over 5 years later. The Chandler Police Department did treat this event just like it was, self-defense, and a tragic family event. We learned in this trial that Charles and I were obviously having marital problems. Regardless of what was happening in our marriage at the time, on July 11th, this was self-defense.
Lori, I love that you keep saying this and pounding on the desk, but you know what kind of bolsters your argument in these things? Now, stop me if I'm throwing too much at you all at once. But see, now what the state prosecutor, now she talked for forever, but she had these things that she could pull up called evidence and facts and receipts, and literally receipts at some point. You just keep using your words. You are, using yourself as the authoritative, definition of truth. And you're like, look, I done said. Again, also, you are terrible at writing these, so perhaps a lawyer next time, just a thought, because I really don't like to be painfully reminded of the speeches I half-assed in 3rd grade about the government.
When Tylee came out with a bat to protect me, her mother, Charles did not have to take the bat from Tylee and start swinging. At 62 years old, Charles had a choice that day and could have put the bat down.
Oh, shut the hell up, you absolute swamp donkey. I was going to say something else, but we already had a verbal slip yesterday, and I'm trying to be good. Where is Will Smith when you need him for something actually justified? Because get Charles's name out your mouth, get Tylee's name out of your mouth, and okay, now we're going straight to her verdict. I can't handle this woman. There is something about the absolute audacity she has of using her daughter's name, using Charles's name, and having no qualms about it. Again, the things that were done to Tylee are beyond description. And yet she's using, Tylee over here like, I'm a good mama and she was protecting me and she loved me and it was Charles's bad. So I am making the executive decision mostly because I don't want to use the word Well, I don't want to use a holster word if I can help it, and she's been pushing me. So let's get to the verdict. Let's get to some judgment.
Corrections from the state?
No, Your Honor.
How about from the defense? The defense did email my staff requesting an additional paragraph. The defendant is not required to testify or produce evidence of any kind. The defendant's decision not to testify or produce evidence.
This is verdict. Let's get to the verdict.
That's my
She's just a normal mom fighting for Jesus against Satan and Ned. As you do. I wish.
All right, please
I
be
hope.
seated. The jury is no longer present. I'll ask the defendant, you indicated earlier perhaps a willingness to stipulate to aggravating factors. Is that something you want to do, or do we want to go through this aggravation phase?
I'm willing to stipulate to it, Your Honor. All that it is the dangerous phase. Is that correct? There's only one statute there's only one sentence.
Well, the jury would need to find, first of all, whether or not this is a dangerous offense first. Secondly, whether the offense caused physical, emotional, or financial harm to the victim, or if the victim died as a result of the conduct of the defendant caused emotional or financial harm to the victim's immediate family. And then thirdly, the offense involved the presence of an accomplice. If you're willing to stipulate to all three of those, we can do that. If not, we'll bring the jury back in.
I will stipulate to it, Your Honor.
All right. You understand that if you stipulate to this instead of a jury finding, well, let me back up. You understand the jury would have to find these aggravating factors beyond a reasonable doubt?
Yes.
All right. And do you understand that if you stipulate to these factors instead of a jury doing it, I could also find additional aggravating factors at sentencing?
Sure.
Has anyone forced you or threatened you?
I mean, damn. I mean, this is like Lori giving him the finger. She obviously doesn't, she thinks she's going to be just fine. She's like, I'll stipulate because they're going to find me not guilty. I'm sure this is.
Any way to get you to stipulate to these factors?
No.
Has anyone promised you anything to get you to stipulate to these factors?
No.
Have you had any drugs, alcohol, or medication in the last 24 hours?
No.
Do you agree that pursuant to the jury's verdict of guilt, that this would be a dangerous offense because a deadly weapon or dangerous instrument was used?
I'm stipulating to it.
You agree that that's...
Oh, bitch, please. Again, you are in no place to be smugly about nothing. So I would tone it down, Chica. Just a little bit.
That's that this is a dangerous offense?
Correct.
And you're further stipulating that as a result of your conduct, at least the victim or the victim's family suffered emotional or financial harm?
Absolutely.
And you're also further agreeing that the offense involved the presence of an accomplice?
Yes.
Is the state satisfied with the colloquy?
Yes, Your Honor, it appears it's knowing voluntary.
All right, the court does find that the stipulation to those three factors was knowingly, intelligently, voluntarily made. I will accept the defendant's stipulation. At this time, I'm going to bring in the jury and release them from the admonition. Before we do that, well, corrections from the state?
No, Your Honor.
How about from the defense? The defense did email my staff request testify not evidence of any aggravating.
No, Your Honor.
Are either the state or the defense requesting any other additional instructions?
No, Your
Introducing any testimony or exhibits?
Testimony, I believe, likely from two family members, we will limit it. I don't plan on doing openings, just presenting testimony and then argument.
All right. Would the defense anticipate presenting any evidence?
Your Honor, can we just stipulate to that? I mean, the statute says there's only one punishment for this crime. What is this? Why is there an aggravation phase for this specific count?
Much like the guilty verdict, the jury in Arizona has to find whether or not there's any aggravating circumstances. In addition, the jury would still need to find that if it's a guilty verdict, whether or not it's a dangerous offense. Until it's found as a dangerous offense, that sentence that you're talking about wouldn't be triggered. So I think we need to have an aggravation phase regardless. So
Okay,
would you plan on presenting any testimony or evidence in the aggravation phase if there is an aggravation phase?
okay, so
No,
this
but
is
can
where
I
we've
just stipulate to-
stipulated.
Stipulate probably verdict is if there is an aggravation phase, where we come out. I'll ask the clerk to read and record the verdict.
Okay, that's what threw me off because generally they stand up to come in for the jury. So I was waiting for her to stand up or for them to say that the jury had left or come in. This is the actual verdict. The rest is just her bitching about stuff. Which, I mean, win some, you lose some.
Superior Court of the State of Arizona in and for the County of Maricopa. State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell. CR 2021-001704-001. Verdict, count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about July 11, 2019, guilty. Signed, foreperson. Is this your true verdict? So say you one and all.
Yes.
On the court's own motion, I'll go ahead and ask the clerk to poll the jury.
Juror number 1, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 2, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 6, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 7, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 8, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 16, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask the jury to retire to the jury room for just about 2 minutes. I need to discuss something with the parties before we determine whether you're done or not. So the admonition still applies. Please go to the jury room for a few minutes.
All right, to the jury.
Okay, so this makes a lot more sense. She already knew she was guilty. We skipped forward because they were talking about stipulations, and I was waiting for them. Now, this might have been what happened because if you guys went through, I do have a video out about Lori Vallow's motion for a new trial, at least in the Brandon Boudreaux case. She does make a big stink about the jury not being released from admonition in the presence of or on the record in the courtroom. So I do wonder if for that particular crime there was also a aggravation or increase kind of stage, and she said, look, I'll just stipulate, and he forgot to release them from the admonition on the record. That being said, she is getting sentenced on Friday. I do have a tentative stream, planned for Friday so we can see her being sentenced. It does look like there are going to be some, impact statements from probably maybe Charles' adult sons, maybe his sister. Again, this has been the first time that even though we've known as Charles as a victim in this conspiracy, that they've really got to say their piece about just Charles. So I think that will be something that they will, they probably really need to have sort of the attention not just be on the children or Tammy. And each of these separate, losses are a tragedy. but they were in this storm of tragedy that to honor just Charles, I think would probably be really cathartic for them. So we will be waiting for that. I don't know what you do to Lori. I mean, she's already got a gajillion and 12 years until the, coming of her best friend, Jesus back into Missouri or Idaho or wherever he's supposed to come back. She's already got that. So I hope that in the intervening years, as the attention drops away from Lori and from Chad, that we remember Tammy and Charles and Tylee and JJ and Lori and Chad are just a joke, but they don't get the attention, recognition, and dark sort of glamour that maybe Lori is hoping to capitalize on by being her own attorney. I don't know. That being said, I am sending you guys over to Recovery Attic. He is following the same case. I just clicked on it. I should remember what it is. I'm a professional. The Shelby Neely sentencing. So it looks like they're going to try to decide whether it's life without parole or the ultimate punishment. And it was a multi-day hearing, I guess. So if you are wanting to do that, I know Andra Branca is on. I guess there's a new controversial case because when isn't there? And then I know Sal is on doing some Judge Simpson. So if you don't have to go to Recovery Attic. If you do, send him just some likes, give him some encouragement. He does a really good job and he does a lot longer days than I do and has all the fun stuff. That being said, thank you for hanging out on the Petty Express, and we will be tomorrow doing the Brian Kohberger sentencing hearing. I will have my, Kleenex and adult beverage. We might take kitten video breaks if it gets bad. Not for disrespect of any of the victims, but good night, nurse. Seeing these families live out and share their grief and pain with us is really hard. So I understand if that's not your jam, but that's what I will be covering tomorrow. And as always, we have Mornings with Mo tomorrow at 8 with headlines, true crime, and the absurd. Hopefully more absurd than headlines or true crime tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Bye, you guys.